For nobles and leaders all around the world, huge, extravagant and withstanding tombs were built to enshrine them forever and lead them into the afterlife. The Valley of the Kings, the Pyramids of Giza, the Mausoleum of the first Qin Emperor and many more. And now imagine what we would have built for gods. A palace designed for protecting what lies within, guarded by never-resting soldiers who died to serve. These are the wandering mausoleums. Elden Ring's most overlooked mysteries. We as a community don't exactly know a lot about the wandering mausoleums, and as it seems to the lands between they are as much of a mystery as to us. In-game we can actually enter them and duplicate remembrances. But if this has lore indications or is purely for the gameplay is yet unsure. The mausoleums are never mentioned by anyone besides someone I'm gonna talk about later during our travels through the lands between. Only a few item and spirit ashes descriptions tell us about them. This lack of information is what makes them so mysterious. We don't know who built them, how old they are or what their true purpose is. But even if we don't know much about them, we still have a bit of information to work with here. So grab something to drink and enjoy the video. So first of all we have to know what a mausoleum is. According to Wikipedia, a mausoleum is an external freestanding building constructed as a monument enclosing the burial chamber of a deceased person or people. A mausoleum without the person's remains is called a cenotaph. A mausoleum may be considered a type of tomb, or the tomb may be considered to be within the mausoleum. With this information alone we can get an idea of what the wandering mausoleums are. They house someone or some dead inside. And this seems to be the case, as if you manage to down one of these mausoleums, you can enter and will find a body on a podium. For in-game purposes you can multiply your remembrances here. But after this they become pretty useless. Some of the mausoleums have a bell hanging from the belly. You can already hear it from far away. The bell itself indicates what remembrance we can duplicate. If there is a bell hanging, you can duplicate any remembrance. If you encounter a mausoleum without a bell, you can only duplicate the ones that aren't from any shard bearer. For example, the fire giants or the ancestral spirit one. After duplicating a remembrance, it stays where it was defeated and won't walk around anymore, becoming simple landmarks. And the soldiers guarding it disappear. As far as we know, there isn't much more to them. But as we know from FromSoft, there is more to them than they tell us. From time to time you encounter these soldiers, usually around the mausoleums, and sometimes at different locations. These are the ghosts of soldiers protecting these mausoleums. After taking a good look we realize that they are all missing the head. They shimmer in a spectral light. Upon defeating them, they have a chance of dropping their armor and equipment, which tell us a little bit more about themselves and the mausoleums. The sun in Eclipse is said to be the symbol of the wandering mausoleum where the soulless demigods slumber. From this item description we already can deduce multiple things. First of all, that these are tombs of demigods. But what is a demigod? According to the overview trailer, the demigods are those who have inherited the blood of Queen Marika the Eternal.
Thou shouldst take the crown.
The lands between is ruled by great heroes. Those who have inherited the blood of Queen Marika the Eternal.
Someone must extinguish thy flame.
And this is also backed up by finger reader Enya, who told us that the demigods are each and all the offspring of Queen Marika. So the bodies within the mausoleums must be descendants to Queen Marika. Also mentioned in the description is that the demigods are soulless. Which is pretty interesting, as to become soulless you have to be killed with destined death. One example of this is Godwyn the Golden, who was killed in the Night of the Black Knives and later became the Prince of Death. Which, if you watch this video probably already know, was the plot Runny planned to get rid of her bond to the Golden Order. So either they died before Marika removed the rune of death from the Elden Ring, or they were killed by destined death. The Eclipsed Sun, drained of color, is the protective star of soulless demigods. It aids the Mausoleum Knights by keeping destined death at bay. This description in particular is pretty interesting. The Eclipsed Sun is said to support the Knights by keeping destined death at bay. So the Eclipsed Sun prevents the spreading of death root. If the bodies inside the mausoleums are only dead in soul, they would probably sprout death root too. So how does the Eclipsed Sun prevent it? By the wandering mausoleums themselves. The ground and legs of them show signs of death, imbued with death in form of skulls to keep them moving. But by keeping them constantly moving, the sprouting of roots is prevented, as the roots can't grip to the ground. But who or what is the Eclipsed Sun? An outer god? Someone we know? Or maybe just the condition of the moon blocking the sun? We don't really know. But there are some theories floating around. Castle Sol. A place roaming with spectral soldiers. Commander Neil at its top. The castle itself is covered in emblems of the Eclipsed Sun. So either they have to do with the mausoleums or they are the creators of these. If you want to progress to the Halig Tree, you have to fight Commander Neil to obtain one half of the secret medallion to the Halig Tree. These knights tried to pray for an eclipse, to give Godwyn a proper death, but failed. So most likely the Mausoleum Knights were created at Castle Sol. They might even have been beheaded with the Eclipse Shotel. Spirit of a headless knight who leads the Mausoleum soldiers. Wields a lance enrobed in death and hurls spectral lances at foes. Ludel sacrificed her life so that in death she could continue to protect a soulless demigod until their revival, earning her the hero's honor of Erdtree burial. So the ultimate goal of the Mausoleums is to prevent the spreading of Deathroot until the revival of the demigods inside. And this might be achieved with an eclipse, sort of resetting the dead to a state before death. Storied sword and treasure of Castle Sol that depicts an eclipsed sun drained of color. One of the legendary armaments. In Sol, the sight of an eclipse inspires a dreadful awe, preventing an onlooker from averting his gaze. Set the lustreless sun ablaze with the Prince of Death's flames, inflicting the death ailment upon foes. If believed, an eclipse already happened, as the description mentions the experience of people seeing it happen, preventing them from looking away as they stand there in awe. The Church of Pilgrimage sits upon a hill not far from the probably first wandering mausoleum you encounter. It is one of the few places you can find a statue of Radagon. Usually when entering a church, a huge statue of Marika looms upon you. This church seems pretty unremarkable, but there is actually the only spoken mention of the mausoleums. A stranded soul, sitting next to the entrance to the church. The mausoleum prowls, cradling the soulless demigod. O Marika, Queen Eternal. He is your unwanted child. He confirms the belief that within are lying the remains of soulless demigods. But he also mentions that the remains are of Marika's unwanted son, which indicates that Marika had more children besides the Shardbearers. But who were they? We never hear about dead demigods, beside Godwyn of course, nor do we see them. According to the Elden Ring wiki, in the Japanese, and thus the original version of the game, the stranded soul doesn't say the unwanted child, but the ugly tankard, or ugly spawn. But why they are dead we don't know. They might have been victims of the Shattering War, died in battle, or even were sacrificed, as they are mentioned as unwanted and ugly. The wing-shaped ornaments on its back evoke the Deathbird, a self-inflicted curse that ties the spirits of these loyal knights to the land, having willingly beheaded themselves so that they may serve their masters in death. The mentioning of Deathbirds is actually pretty interesting, as the Deathbirds were most likely the carriers of death before the era of the Erdtree, as death before the Erdtree was a ground principle of the lands between. The Deathbirds were the ones leading the souls of the dead into the afterlife or realm of the dead. So destined death once belonged to the Twin Bird, the vessel of an unknown outer god. And their job was crucial to the world, and the land of the dead was their domain. This would explain all the graveyards we can find across the lands between. In the era of the Golden Order, people who died got an Erdtree burial, so their soul can return to the Erdtree, which would make graveyard kind of unnecessary. So it might be that the Deathbirds are the source and reason why the Eclipsed Sun was trying to bring Godwin back. When the carrier of death can't bring people to the land of the dead, no one can. So they believed it to be possible to bring him back. And over time multiple demigods died. And were brought to the Mausoleums to be brought back eventually. At this point everything I say is pure speculation and is most likely proven wrong once the DLC is released. And that was the point. I had an idea. Is the stranded soul talking about Mesmer? He talks not in plural. The words, "He is your unwanted child," mind the interchangeable words with "ugly spawn," suggest that the one in the Weeping Peninsula Mausoleum is a specific child. Also, if you watch the trailer you see that the land is cast in a shadow. If you ever seen an eclipse in real life you realize it looks stunningly similar to the skybox in the shadow of the Erd Tree trailer. Is the lands of shadow possibly connected to the Eclipsed Sun? Or is it even the land of the dead where the Deathbirds originate from? Are the dead demigods in the Mausoleum in the land of shadows? If you take a close look at the body of Miquella, you see that his body is damaged beyond repair. Just as the bodies of the Mausoleum demigods. And we know for a fact that Miquella is in the land of shadows. Even sporting a completely different look. So are instead the souls of the killed demigods somehow taken to the land of shadows? Thanks for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe if you enjoyed the video. And don't forget, winds howling.